Hello, and welcome to the third episode of this week's podcast of Broflation. Introducing myself, Davo, and we have a new member of the panel. And let me introduce to you the one and only Bradley. So, Bradley, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Yes, I'm good, thank you. Here's what we're going to talk about. So you've got someone's number. They've agreed to meet you for a date. You've got off the dating app, and you're now talking to them on WhatsApp, or maybe you're phoning them. And we're now going to prepare you for your date. That is the focus of this episode. Um, so it's all about the build up to a date, how to approach it, what kind of problems you could encounter, and how to deal with it. So yeah, it's the one thing we're going to warn you about. Just because someone has agreed to go on a date with you, it's not guaranteed. Do not take it as a given because people change their mind at the last minute. They often do, and they'll look for the most outrageous excuses as well to get out of it. So we'll kick off. Bradley, what sort of experiences have you had in the build up to the date? What can you tell us about your experience?
I've had many. I've had quite a few different experiences. Um, I've actually had where I've organised a date with a girl, and on the day of I've actually been getting ready for a date, and I got a text from the girl saying that she can't make it anymore. So I've also had one where it's been organised, and she's obviously been on the dating app, and she texted me, I think a day before it was, and she actually said that dating isn't for her at this stage, even though she's been through the dating app, talking to people, setting up a profile, and it's just you just wonder like why someone would go through all of that, just to say that obviously she's not at the stage for dating. It's just a waste of time for herself and for others as well. Um, and yeah, that's a couple of experiences. I don't know what if do you have you had any different to what I have?
Very similar, but nothing quite as shocking as on the day or the day before. Um, and when it's been organised, I don't know, through a particular dating app or organisation, I've never experienced anything quite like that. But I have had people take ages to respond. So if someone's not responding for a week, if they respond to you and it takes them a week at a time, then you have to start asking questions. And I've had that quite a lot. And eventually they'll just say, sorry, I'm not ready to date, or they're talking to someone else. They won't even say that they've met someone else. They'll say, well, I'm talking to someone else. I don't want to talk to multiple people. But the problem with that, what if they haven't actually, they've not met this person yet? And if it doesn't go well with the person they want to talk to, then they've already thrown away their backup or their secondary option, which is a bit daft. I've even had people say to me that someone in their family is dying, and most of the time I would question it, but there was one time when it turned out to be true. But because I found out for a friend of mine who dated this girl, but I dodged a bullet because this girl cheated on him and went on holiday with someone else, like a romantic getaway. Yeah, I've had people say I'm not ready to date after getting my number, following me on Instagram, and you kind of think it's a load of rubbish because why do that if you're not ready to date in the first place? Surely you would know beforehand and you wouldn't go to all that trouble. Like Bradley said, it's a very good point. Um, but another thing, when people give you their number as well, you think they're serious, but what it often is, I've heard a lot of people say, like especially women, they're afraid to say no to you because they don't want to upset someone. But I could understand if it was in person where they were giving out, you asked for their number and they gave you their number just out of politeness because it would feel awkward saying no to someone in person. But on these dating apps, it's so easy because you've never even met the person, you've never seen them in your life. It is so easy just to say no, just unmatch them or ignore them if that's how you feel. At least you know where you stand. You're not going to be led on. Like, don't you agree, Bradley?
I do, and going back I was just listening to what you were saying, and it brought another thing to my mind. And actually, um, also I was thinking, um, that on the day, uh, obviously everyone goes through mental health and everyone goes through a lot of during their life. That everyone goes through anxiety, and when you go on dates, it's very much people get very nervous, people get anxious, people, everyone doesn't like something of themselves, and that's what makes it very hard dating because you're already it's very hard because when you go on dates, I've been on a few dates with other girls who are very anxious about something particular about themselves, and everyone who goes on dates, even myself, goes through a nervous stage because you don't know who you're meeting, you don't know what they look like. Sometimes, obviously, you do because, like, for example, some profiles on Tinder, J Swipe, Hinge, etc. You got the pictures, but most of the time the pictures are actually filtered anyway. But you've also got other dating apps which they don't have pictures. And I've been on a few blind dates and dates who I don't actually know who I'm meeting or what they look like or and on top of actually going on dates and you're feeling nervous and anxious about even before you go on the date to have that on top of you as well. And like I said, everyone has mental health even after the dates. You go home and you question yourself: has it gone well? What did I do wrong? What did I do right? Does the girl, does the boy like me? And it's things like that. I don't know if you agree or.
Well, going back on that, I had a few thoughts on what you said. So, look, like you said, we all have mental health issues in one way or another, but aren't we all in the same boat? Does that not mean that we should work together? We're in this together. It's a joint struggle. So we should be a bit more understanding of each other. But I would also say if you're nervous about meeting someone, then you shouldn't even put yourself out there on a dating app in the first place. Like someone, for example, said when I asked for their number and let's meet up or something because they liked my profile, they said, well, I don't really know anything about you and I don't know who you are. So I said to them, being very cheeky, well, why don't you go date your next door neighbor if that's how you feel? So that's just me. But we are all in this together, and I understand how people feel, but surely you're going to feel worse for it if you don't ever meet anyone, because if that's your thought process and if you can't sort of try and fight it, then you're going to be bored in life and you'll have less dates and you're not really going to know what you want and what you like. But that's just my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah. I got mixed views on that. Like sometimes, obviously, you get some of these. I know you said, oh, obviously everyone's all in it together. It's quite easy to say that between us, but
Of course.
sometimes you get people who are very not outgoing but very loud and very they think like their personality is just all about them, and sometimes it's very hard. Like obviously when you go out dating, your confidence might not be as good as someone else's, or your there's loads of other things. Your confidence might be a bit low at the time, or people go through personal things as well. I'm not just talking about dates. There might be you're not feeling well on the day, or you're not, or something's happened a day before or a week before, which has brought you even more anxiety. Like it's not just about dates; it's about other things as well. It could be anything, um, and yeah, I just at the time there could be someone very, very on it. Not I don't know if on it's a good word, but
Yeah,
very
yeah, that's fine.
confident. Yeah, very confident. Very, but a week later they might be in a low place. So it's just things change, not overnight, but things can change very, very quickly. And confidence, your mental health, everything can change. So whilst that's why you've got to have fun, you've got to live your life, you've got to go on these dates, you've got to just enjoy it. And like you said, hopefully everyone will get each other, and it won't be such a um, not awkward situation, but hopefully everyone can be on same as each other and just let the conversation flow.
Yeah, I think that's a very balanced response, Bradley. It's certainly the most realistic way of looking at it. Maybe I'm being a little bit harsh because I'm very skeptical, but absolutely, you really don't know what's going on. A person could cancel for a million and one reasons. You just don't know. We're not telepaths. Whilst we have a rough idea of what's going on, we can't be sure. But something I want to stress before you go on a date, you want to make sure you've built up a rapport with the person because you want the conversation to flow, be it WhatsApp or calls. You want to sort of get a bit of dialogue going and sort of get to know each other. So when you see them, you'll sort of be able to continue from where you left off. Because I've often been on the dates I've been on where there's not been a lot of dialogue before meeting the person. They've turned up there and the person's been very quiet, very sort of boring, and you could just get a sense that they didn't really want to be there and they just had nothing to say for themselves. And um, if I knew better, I'd say they were meeting me just out of boredom to kill a bit of time. So I think whilst it's not, it doesn't guarantee a good date building up a rapport because the conversation could be going really well. They could meet you and change their mind for some unknown reason. So um, I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer, but more often than not, this is what I've experienced. It doesn't often last a long time. The date it gets cut short, and you just think, well, why waste someone's time? To me, that a lot of people are just doing it to build their resume, and if they find someone physically attractive, they'll say, "Oh, look who I dated," to their friends, be it a man or a woman. Um, but what sort of red flags would you look out for before going on a date?
Um, I don't think I've got any red flags. I just obviously, like you said, you've got to be attracted to the person. It's not all about looks; it's about personality as well. Um, and like we've been saying, you've just got to go, even if it's not going well, just go and have fun because there will be a stage where you're married, you've got kids, and I've been speaking to family members who have obviously when they were younger they were partying, clubbing, dating, and now they're settled down with kids, and it's the hardest thing because yes, okay, you love having kids, but it's also you don't have a time to go out and enjoy yourself. It's like you've got two other people you've got to look at. You can't look after yourself at the moment when you go on dates. It's like you're just looking after yourself. Whereas when you have kids and when you're married and when you're settled, you can't go out and do that because you've got a wife, you've got kids to look after, you've got yourself to look after, you've got a house, you've got bills. So that's what I mean. That's what I mean about just enjoy yourself. I mean, before I go on dates, I've started to do like only recently. I've actually started to do like some meditation and some before I go on the date, just to get a bit more relaxed, just to take away any if there is any anxiety, so I can go into the date being absolutely calm, absolutely fresh. I won't be nervous. So I've started to do that, and it's really, really helped. So if you could do some, it doesn't have to be meditation. It can be just listening to music. It just take your mind away from life and away from your phone because a lot of media is very depressing. Just put your phone down, listen to some music, do some meditation, read a book. Just take away everything what's going on in life and just focus on yourself. That's what I would advise.
And that's a great piece of advice, Bradley. Everyone, I hope you're listening to it and you take this in because it's very important to have a clear head. And that way, I think you can go into it with a more open mind and not sort of think, well, what if this and what if something else, and have it gets rid of negative thoughts, and you sort of you go into it at more ease. So the last part of this podcast, Bradley and I are going to discuss what you should do for a first date. And we may have divided opinions as to whether you wine them and dine them. Do you go for a drink? Do you do something fun? You don't want to sort of seem too forward, and so you have to be very selective about what you do with that person, and it's not so straightforward. So, what would you do personally, Bradley?
So on my first date, I actually want to take them somewhere where I can just talk to them, because obviously you're meeting for the first time. You want somewhere not I'm not saying like a library where it's quiet, or I'm saying so you can actually hear them and you can actually listen and you can actually get to know one another, because you don't want to go somewhere like where it's really loud, you can't hear one another. You want to get to know them as a person, and what they're actually like, what their personality's like. um so I for my first dates, I always go to somewhere um where I can actually speak to them, and they can speak to me, and we can actually flirt a little bit, speak to one another, and actually just get to know one another. So yeah, I don't know. Is that what you do, or do you have a different mind?
Um, yeah, I do pretty much the same thing. I definitely wouldn't go to a library because we get kicked out for talking, but I wouldn't go to a nightclub because my hearing isn't great as it is, so I wouldn't be able to hear a damn thing. Um, I can't lip read, so that would be a bit of a problem as well. So I think somewhere you can actually talk, have a normal conversation, you can hear each other. Um, I mean, yeah, it's good to go for a drink, but the trouble is, I've often experienced, after a drink, it's not long enough to get to know someone always if they cut it short. So if you wine them and dine them, you get to really make an evening of it, and sort of understand them a little bit more and get to know them better because you would be spending more time together. Um, but I suppose the disadvantage, if it's not going well and the conversation's not flowing, you're stuck with them for a couple of hours. Whereas you go for a drink, you can just say, look, I'm sorry, you're a very nice person, but this isn't working. And you can just leave there and then. But what would you do?
I totally agree. I totally agree with that. I think for my first date, like I said, I would go for a drink, um, just in case, like you said, it's not the conversation's not flowing. Obviously that there's not much in it. You're not going to meet again. So to actually leave during whilst you're out for drinks is much easier than if you're for example waiting for a meal to come, because obviously you're not going to leave then. um but and then once I get to know them, if I like after the drinks, if the conversation's going well, if there's a bit of flirting, if we're having fun, then my second date would actually be going to somewhere to a restaurant somewhere for dinner, because obviously who you're meeting, the conversation's going well, that you two are getting along. And then you take it up a notch, obviously going to a restaurant, a nice restaurant, and just yeah, getting to know each other even more.
Well, that's certainly a very sensible approach, and it is the safer way to play it. However, if the conversation is going really well, let's say you're calling them, you're talking every day, and you've got a fast response rate between each other, then it may not hurt to join them for dinner and on the first date. But you've got to be sure that you're going to click with them and that the conversation is going to keep flowing, and you know that you're going to like them. So you have to be quite sure. So I guess it really depends. There's no
So
again. Yes, go on, Bradley.
yeah, see, I'm different. Everyone's different. Like for example, when I speak to someone, um, and it might be other people as well. Probably will be other people, and other people will probably be the same issue as well. but I don't speak to them for long before I ask them out like, on a date. So I would just match with them and say, "Oh, let's go out for a drink or something," or like straight away before we even have a conversation, like a proper conversation. Where some people might want to speak for 4, 5, 6, 7 days before they ask one another out, just to make sure that the conversation is going well. But other people just might want to just go out and just enjoy and face to face and just have conversations like that.
Yeah, so essentially it can work both ways. So it just depends on sort of what your tactics are, how you approach it. So if you don't want to mess about, skip the small talk and get straight to a date, a drink is probably the best option. But if you need a week or so, or maybe 2 weeks to speak to them and get to know them a bit more and sort of gauge what they're all about, then maybe it won't hurt to go for dinner. I'd say that would be sort of the pathway to go down. But I think we can both agree that if the first date goes well, let's say you then take them on a date for dinner or something, and that's successful. On the third date, you probably want to do something fun, like, I don't know, mini golf, or go to one of these interactive bingo
Yeah,
places, darts,
yeah,
something that's moderately sporty.
yeah, yeah. Like you said, the first date, if that is the drinks, then you have the dinner together. If that goes well, you want to do something, what's like you said, fun for both of you, and it can bring out your fun and your funny personality, and that's how you can really see after you've had your drinks and you've had your dinner together, like a nice relaxed dinner. Then you go for the fun bit and the actual sporty bit. So it doesn't have to be sporty. It can be theatre. It can be anything. But that's where you like a day out trip. Um, but that will be where you actually. I always think that the third day is the most crucial if you're going to be long term in a relationship, because like I said, the first one is getting to know one another. If it goes well, you go on to the second day. The second day is where you get to know them a bit more over dinner, what they're like over dinner, which is more of a relaxed environment. And then if that goes well, then you go on to like the fun and the day out and seeing what they're actually like going out and for the day. If you're going to enjoy that atmosphere of being of going out and spending time with them, and if that goes well, then you've pretty much done everything. You've done if you enjoy the day out and you enjoy evenings together, which is the dinner, and you enjoy drinking the drinks, getting to know each other, then the third date I think is the most crucial one. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, I certainly think so because it sort of shows them off a little bit more as a person, and you get to know them a lot better, what they're like in different scenarios. So you get to see their personality as a whole and get a better idea of whether they are for you or not. So I think that yeah, I concur. Um,
Yeah.
and so before we finish, the key takeaways. What would you say? Shall I go first, or Bradley? Do you want to go?
Yeah, you could go first. Yeah, you could go first,
Okay,
and
no
I'll
problem.
contribute.
So, yeah, don't take it as guaranteed if they do agree to go on the date with you, because even if they do eventually agree and they're taking ages to respond to you each time, it often tells me that they were just doing it out of boredom and they're often not serious. But we're going to get onto that next week about what happens after a date. So again, you want good conversation, ideally. Well, that's how I feel at least. Um, and you want to build up a rapport and sort of have a bit of conversation to go with, like that's got legs that keeps going and going. And you know that when you meet them on that date, you can continue that conversation, and that one conversation becomes another, and it just keeps flowing and flowing. So that would be my sort of angle of attack, if you like. Um, but yeah, just be skeptical if they are making excuses at the last minute. But at the same time, don't call them out on it because you just don't know. But at least have that in the back of your mind. Um, so that's everything that I have to say. Bradley?
Yeah, that's everything you said is exactly what I was going to say, and just reiterating that about everyone's mental health. Treat everyone how not the same way you want to be treated, as in like people have different. Like we said, people going through different stages. They might have um, they might be at a time where they're struggling, or they might be at a time where they're you just don't know what anyone's going through. So you want to by what I mean in terms of treat everyone, just be kind to everyone, and just enjoy yourself and go out. And even if the date doesn't go well, just don't beat yourself up against. Don't beat yourself up. Just continue being you, and just enjoy being you, and just love yourself, because that's the main thing. If you love yourself, people are gonna love you. If you don't love yourself, then you're going to start thinking that why you've got to be the person who has to love themselves before everyone else loves you. Because if that doesn't happen, then it's not going to work, because people aren't gonna you're gonna always think that people don't like you because you don't love yourself.
That's a brilliant message. And to add to that, it's a numbers game. So go on as many dates as possible and try not to dismiss people and close the door. Don't look for excuses not to not date them. As well, I think on that note, knowing that we're all very different, it's about variety. So meet as many different people as possible because you want to meet someone who's at the same stage as you. And just by going on one date, you could meet someone who's completely different. So the more people you meet, the more likely you are to meet someone who matches you and who is compatible. And again, it's all about experience. So don't beat yourself up over it because you get a better idea of what you're looking for and what you're not looking for. So on that note, yeah, we're gonna say farewell. And next week's podcast, episode 4, is about what to do after a date. And thank you so much for listening. We will see you next week. Have a good evening, everyone.